Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to NTUB News. I am the anchor, Sean. Do you know which country is to be the richest nation, that is GDP, could reach up to 35,000 per capita? You may be surprised. It is a tiny island country in the Pacific Ocean called Nauru. But how it became a pro country in the blink of an eye. Now, follow our steps to peek at the glorious economic history in Nauru.
In the 1970s, Nauru was the richest country in the world because of the abundant phosphates. Phosphates are a kind of natural resource and can be used as the ingredients of fertilizer. The country's trade in mined goods expanded in decades, and it made Nauru's GDP reach up to $45,000 per capita in 1975. The government will even cover all expenses at that time, including food, tuition, and utilities. However, everything changed when the phosphate resource ran out in the 1990s. The Nauruan government made a foolish investment. The president adopted Ming's suggestion of investing in a musical called Leonardo's Musical, A Portrait of Love, which was criticized as the biggest disaster in London theater. Finally, Nauru lost about $7 million and was no longer rich anymore.
Recently, Nauru is soaring again. Due to the regional processing center, the government gains $155 million from 2019 to 2020. It made up 58% of the country's revenue. However, the way they make money is controversial, but it is a hope for them to rebound. Now, let's see the behind scene of Nauru's prosperity.
Settling down the refugees might be a tricky problem for Australia, but it is a crucial chance for Nauru to rebuild its economy. Since 2012, Australia has been paying for Nauru to develop a regional processing center for refugees. It is quite a polarizing issue. To Australia and Nauru, it might be a win-win situation. It brings a huge profit to Nauru that the local revenue has climbed 900%, and Australia can handle the refugees' problem at the same time. But the opponent says that it might report the refugees' human rights. Professor Stephen House says Australia wants Nauru to host that processing center, so it is totally legitimate for Nauru to say they have been successful in extracting a lot of value in that agreement. Will this be a long-term way to remain good economic status, or is it just temporary? Reporter Tony and Gary. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. We will teach you 10 words from the report Nauru Thriving Again. In today's video, first, we will take a look at which 10 words you will learn today, and how these words were used in the article. Nauru's economy is booming again on the back of the refugee detention center. Nauru couldn't stand on its own 2 feet and should be incorporated into Australia. They have a culture, a right to their language and all of that, but they don't have the right to being kept forever by Australia taxpayers. And that's what Nauru is setting out to do, to be a perpetual beggar state. Nauru's economy is soaring again, due largely to its return from Australia offshore processing center for refugees. 2 generations ago, Nauru had become very rich on phosphates, but lost their money through foolhardy investments. Over the past 9 years, since the camp reopened, Nauru government's revenue have climbed 900%. The refugee camp had been controversial since it reopened in 2012, but host says the island clearly bargained hard to get a good deal out of Canberra. Australia wants Nauru to host that processing centre, so it is totally legitimate for Nauru to say.
Detention. Detention. The act of detaining or holding back. The jail is only used for brief detentions. Incorporate. Incorporate. To form or become a corporation. This design incorporates the best features of our earlier models. Perpetual. Perpetual. Continuing forever. The region is in a state of perpetual war.
Soar. Soar. To rise or increase dramatically. Compared to last year, the country's GDP soared a further 30% this year. Foolhardy. Foolhardy. Foolishly adventurous and bold. It would be foolhardy to try and predict the outcome of the talk at this stage. Phosphate. Phosphate. A sort of compound that has phosphorus in it and that is used especially in products that help plants grow. Most fertilizers contain nitrogen and phosphate.
Bargain. Bargain. To discuss an agreement or price in order to make it more appealing. The employees bargain with management for better rates of pay each year. Revenue. Revenue. Money that is made by or paid to a business or an organization. Taxes provide most of the government's revenue. Legitimate. Legitimate. Allowed according to rules or laws. The army must give power back to the legitimate government. Controversial. Controversial. Relating to or causing much discussion, disagreement, or argument. He considered it a controversial decision.
Detention. Detention. Incorporate. Incorporate. Perpetual. Perpetual.
Soar. Soar. Foolhardy. Foolhardy. Phosphate. Phosphate.
Bargain. Bargain. Revenue. Revenue. Legitimate. Legitimate. Controversial. Controversial.
Welcome back to NTUB News. I am the actor. Sean.
不是啊，
你要把那句话讲出来。
等一下，
你就摆错。
你就手给我放好，不要让他给我反光，给我认真。
我他妈不知道他会不会反光，你知道？因为我
挑好一个角度，不要等，不要。
这样，
我们出去外面解决。
这样。可我也忘记了，忘记我干嘛。